So now you can hear us? Yes. Is that right?
Hello, everyone.
Hope you can hear us. We are here on Love Talks Week 2 live stream. Oh, are we okay on there?
No, we haven't
No?
got live yet.
Okay. So we will go live on. So we're live on Instagram, Facebook. Hopefully you can see us. We'll try to do this. We'll try to look there and there and there and there and there and there.
Yeah, exactly.
So for those who are just joining on, we're going to be starting in a couple of minutes. This is Love Talks, which is our live March series. Every Sunday, Faizan and I are getting together to talk about relationship, and people have been sending us questions, and so we're answering your questions that you have sent us and live questions. So if you have a question that you want to know the answers to, well, I don't know if we have all the answers. We'll give you some answers.
We definitely don't have all the answers.
We'll give you our ideas.
Yeah.
That's the best we can do.
And I know one of the things, we'll talk about it, I guess.
And you have to try to make sure you're like in the screen over there.
You need to get out of the screen.
I'll just lean on you like
this. You need to stop hogging the screen.
Then I'll be in the whole time.
Like you always hog the screen.
I'm only on half, man. I'm not hogging. Jeez, man. Oh, geez. Okay, so why do we decide to do this? We can tell the people while everybody's gathering. Why are we doing this?
You made me? Was that a good enough answer?
This is your idea, dude.
Oh, was this my idea?
Yes.
So one of the main reasons we did it, other than Saira making me do it, was we had a group that we were working with in February, a Love Talks group, which is great. We had amazing couples that came, shared their ideas, their time. They were vulnerable. But 4 weeks is never enough. I don't know, 4 years isn't enough. 40 years isn't enough. Like it's just never enough to kind of get through, especially with the personal growth work that we're all kind of on a journey to do. Mm-hmm. So it just felt like we wanted to continue conversations, and we also wanted to invite other people. So maybe not just. Sorry,
it's really bugging me. See this, and then that one too has a little.
See.
Turn it down.
Yeah.
I love you so much.
This is what I deal with.
It's the mom in me. I can't do it to my son because he doesn't listen to me anymore. So I'm just making this nice and tidy.
So you do it to your husband.
Well,
and don't you tell people not to be the moms to their husbands?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, these things bug me, man. The whole time, that's all I would have been noticing is your turned up sleeve. So I'm just making it better for me. Okay.
Right. So as you can see, we're still dealing with our control issues. We're still dealing with our own issues of being mothers.
YouTube? Are we on YouTube?
We are on YouTube.
Oh.
Hello, YouTube.
Hi, YouTube.
Hello, Facebook. So we really.
Isn't that a love killer? Yeah, it totally is. What I just did right there, totally a love killer. Oh my gosh, mommying your partner kills the romance.
I don't know who this Facebook user is. Tell her. This is not cool. Anyways, so the reason we started was because we wanted to continue having conversations. Mm-hmm. One, it gets us out of bed on Sundays. Barely to have conversations. We love talking about this stuff. Like if we weren't doing this live, we would be talking about it outside.
That's how the whole podcast started.
That's how the podcast started. But we're going to continue having these conversations anyways.
So we have a podcast, in case you don't know. It's called Subsy Life. It's available on Spotify and iTunes. Is there iTunes? Apple, whatever that one is. And Google, other places. Yeah. So if you like this and you're enjoying what you're hearing, there's about maybe 20 to 30 minutes. And it's just us chatting about different topics. So we just...
Yeah, it's definitely not scripted, as you'll
hear.
Yeah.
Neither is this.
Neither is this.
Clearly. Ooh, I have some questions. Yes. Okay. So there are a couple of questions that came in before, so we're going to address those as well. And then there's a live question. Yeah, it's 12 o'clock, so we can start. Okay.
Get started, yeah.
So welcome for those who are just joining. Dr. Saira and Faizan here. I am a psychotherapist, and Faizan's a coach, and we run relationship groups and workshops and see individual client. We do all kinds of stuff.
And we work on our own relationships.
A lot.
As you can see.
A lot. We love each other, and it's still hard a lot of the time. Not a lot of the time. A lot of the time. So yeah. And that's how it is, right? In long-term committed relationships, is that sometimes it just sucks and you just have to like push through, and sometimes it's great. And so on the days that we're feeling great, we thought we would share with you the times that suck so that we can all do this together. You don't have to be alone. So there's 3 questions that we have so far. If you have a question for us, please type it in the comment section so that we can answer it during this talk. And I'll tell you what the 3, we'll just do one at a time. So the first question.
I don't have them.
I have them in my mind.
Yeah.
So the first question is about pain, right? How do you manage physical pain in the body? There's a lot of beeping. What's happening? What's happening? I don't know what I did. I pressed some button. Oh my gosh.
Did you stop?
What is this?
You're charging.
I'm not supposed to charge my phone?
No, because it's connected to the computer.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I clearly don't know what I'm doing with phones. Okay. So the first question was about pain in the body and how to manage through that when you're
pain and feelings, right? Like
feeling emotional pain, physical pain in the body. Another question was about what to do when you think your partner may have depression or anxiety, but your partner doesn't really believe in depression and anxiety, or they think they should be able to snap out of it. How do you support them? And the question that just came through today, just now, is how can we express ourselves with a person who is angry and doesn't let you talk?
Don't look at me.
That's a great question. I have lots to say about that question. And so does Faizan. I get angry too. Let's be honest.
No, never.
I get angry in a different. What did you tell me yesterday about the slamming? So we're sitting on the couch. We're watching, I don't know, some show. And Faizan says to me, "You've really changed. You've changed a lot over the years." I was like, "What?"
Well, because the kids had left a big mess. All of us had left messes around the house. And I just remember the first year of our marriage, and like a little spot of dust on the floor would just drive her
Not
nuts.
a spot of dust on the floor. Crumbs, Faizan. There's a difference.
Whatever.
Because they get under your feet.
Yeah, but you would then spend the next 3 hours cleaning the whole house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would.
Yes.
He reminded me of this pizza box that was... Because, okay, I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but I have a spot in my house that I just need that one spot clean. Like, just that one spot. Everything else can be chaos, and for me, it's the kitchen island. Like, just keep the island clean, for goodness sakes. And then there's a pizza box. Like, why not put the pizza box in the recycling? Why? Okay, another question. So let's get on to our questions. So first question is, which one do you want to do first?
Whichever one you want.
How about we start with the depression and anxiety one? Because that has to do with...
One thing we will say, obviously, as people are asking questions, we're definitely missing your context. We don't know what's actually happening in your life. So we're making assumptions. We just want to be clear, right? And a lot of what we talk about is just from our experience as well.
And there's an assumption. So there's a couple of assumptions we're making. One, we're making an assumption that you're not in a physically violent relationship.
Right.
Because if you're in a physically violent, domestic violence type of situation, then you need other kind of inputs and other external supports to make that, to get where you need to be for that. So don't try this at home if there's violence happening in your home. Also, if there's addiction, if you or your partner has a serious addiction issue, also like take this with a grain of salt, because everything that we talk about won't work when you're not in your right state of mind. So I just want to say that. And yeah, if you're in a same-sex relationship or different gendered relationship, it's totally fine. And thanks for letting us know that that's part of your question. But yeah, so thanks. So yeah, this is for whatever, but it is for like a monogamous relationships. That's what we have studied and know about. So we don't really know much about like open relationships and other kind of constitutions of relationships. So we're assuming that you're either in or wanting to be in a monogamous, long-term committed relationship with another human.
Right. And we should also point out that one of the assumptions that we have, or maybe it's not an assumption, one of our biases is that we want to make relationships work.
Yes, we are in favor of relationships.
Right. So you're also when we're answering questions, we're assuming that you also want to make the relationship work, and you're not thinking about like
how to get out.
Yeah, these conversations aren't to help you decide do you leave or do you stay. Like that's not what this is. Absolutely work with professionals to get to that place to be able to make those decisions if that's where you are. But our bias right now is we want to make relationships work.
Okay, let's start with the questions. Okay. So let's start with the anger question. I think that can be used like not just in intimate partnership, but for many different kinds of relationships, whether it's at work or with your family members, friends. How can you express yourself with a person who's angry and doesn't let you talk? So last time,
supposedly I'm the angry one in this relationship. So
we just express it in different ways. I can get angry, but my expression of anger is more like slamming dishes. And Faizan's expression of anger is more loud volume. That's kind of how he shows it, right? So how do we express ourselves with someone who's angry? So last time we were on, we talked about standing in the fire. So make sure you go back and watch that talk, because I don't want to repeat what we've already discussed, but there's a concept called standing in the sacred fire, where you're able to stand with the person that you love and not take things personally. So go back and watch that one if after we're done, so that you'll get what that concept is. That's how I would answer that question about how do I express myself with someone who's angry and doesn't let you talk. Usually when you're angry, talking isn't going to help anyway. I'll just be honest, because here's the thing. There's different parts of your brain, right? So there's a part of your brain that's rational and reasonable and logical and can make like good decisions and has a long-term vision in mind and knows how to do social relationships. And there's the other part of your mind, survival. It's a survival mode part of your brain. When you're shouting, you're in survival mode. You're not in your logical reason. That part of your brain cannot shout, right? So when you're shouting or somebody's angry or they're talking really like aggressively, they're already in their fight or flight part of their brain. So you're not going to get through anyway. Talking isn't going to help in that moment. What's actually going to help in that moment is for both people to move away, let their nervous systems neutralize, and then come back together once their captain is back on board. So if you're in a situation where somebody's just not letting you talk, you got to know that they're in their fight or flight mode and anything you say won't land anyway. It's hard because it means that you have to shut the F up.
There's a...
Right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think with enough work though, right, one of the things is like, okay, we're not going to be able to actually get to that rational part when we're in that mode. Is that with enough work, at least I'm noticing this now, is that I'm able to observe myself in those moments. Like even if I'm like yelling at the children, it's like,
children.
This isn't going to help. Like there's that voice has developed, the observer mind, whatever you want to call it, is now coming in and saying, that's not going to help, right? And yes, I'm not able to shut down most of the times when I'm kind of in that zone. But I'm noticing more with the work is that I'm noticing this, at least as the angry person now. The question was really around feeling heard, right? When the other
the same person's continuing on that question, saying, so first question is that a podcast? So standing in the fire, if you go back on this page on Dr. Saira and just go down, you'll see our last talk from last week. And that's the one that you're going to watch for standing in the fire. If that's mostly your partner's normal conversation in daily life, it's not just one moment, it gets a little more complicated, right? Because then they're just kind of this like angry, aggressive personality. Drama triangle.
But it also kind of goes back to this question about, if the other person's not, like you're the only one always doing the work, right?
Because that's one of the questions, right? How can you address the issue of growth if the other person's just likes to listen to music, read their newspaper, and not wanting to give 5 minutes to the relationship to improve? I love that.
Right. So I think the chat is not private. It does stay, so please, if you want to go back and delete, go ahead, and I believe you can delete your delete your comments. But from the perspective of if the other person just doesn't want to do their work, you cannot, like Saira, as much as she wants me to be somebody else sometimes or something better, she's not the one that can get me there. As much as
many hints as I drop, as many books as I leave lying around, I remember one time I asked him, there was this blog post and I sent it to him and I said, this is a great blog post, for you as a coach, because I love his style. And he read it and he was furious. He's like, you sent that to me because you wanted me to get the content of that post. I know what you were doing. And it was about shitty husbands. That was how to not be and he was mad, and it was a manipulation, right? It was me trying to get information to him because I thought he wasn't getting it. But it just made him angry because at the end of the day, he's got to be the one who decides to do his own work. I can't do that for him, no matter how many good ideas. And you probably have this experience as well, right? So say if there's something in your life you want to change, like say you want to get more active, you know what you need to do. You just need to get on your runners and go outside for a walk. Not that hard, right? And you can read all kinds of articles and you can talk to a bunch of people and you can join all these clubs and, have support groups. But if you're not actually putting on your runners and going for a walk, you're not doing the thing, right? So I'm the one who's going to have to put on my runners and go for the walk. He can't do that for me.
And the other thing is, right, I think sometimes we're trying to get something from our partner that our partner is not capable of giving.
Right.
Okay. I'll try to repeat it again.
Say that again.
If I can,
yep.
Right? We are trying to get something from our partner that our partner is not capable of giving. So things like she needs a bestie who she can just chat with and yap with and talk to for an hour and a half. It ain't me. She tried to be me, and then I would lose my shit. Like what? Or like
he'd be like, why are you what is the problem? I don't hear the problem in your story. I'm like, oh, there's no problem. I'm just like blah 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 blah. And he would just be like, it was too much. And so then I had to find another place to talk about the things that I needed to get out of my system. Right. Can you go back up for the questions? I'm not sure how to.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, because there's a few other questions.
But I think one thing I will point out, right? Like, so if your partner is not willing to do the work and all that, it's like, what are you like? This is part of your work. What are you wanting from your partner, right? Because if your partner's not able to give it, you can get it other places, right? Like if it's things like I just want to lay out my feelings, journal might help. Another friend may be of help. I just want to be clear that your partner doesn't need to be the only person that you can talk to.
Shouldn't be
the only person,
right?
Yeah. Because they have their own stuff, right? And until they're willing to look at their stuff, they may not be ready to have that conversation with you.
So here's another. So let's go to those two questions that were submitted in advance, and we'll go to some of these.
Sure.
Yeah. So one of the question was, how do you deal with physical pain in the body and emotional pain? Something about the relationship between
when you're
those?
not able to feel. We're not able to feel. I believe that was a question. I'll see if I can bring it up.
So here's the thing, and you might already know this, that there is a connection between emotional, psychological pain and the physical body. There is a relationship. As much as Western science has wanted to separate those into like physical health and mental health, they're interconnected and they're interwoven. And I mean, you can just think of it as something as simple as when you have the flu, you feel down. Usually you feel a bit like irritated or angry or sad or lonely. Like that's part of having the flu. It's not just a physical tiredness, it's also kind of an emotional impact. So there is that. And so if you're having a lot of kind of emotional tension, how do you deal with your lost feelings and pain in your body? So first of all, the fact that you're admitting it is a good thing. You may need to do other things to supplement that physical pain, like chiropractic, massage. I know for me, my work requires that I hold people's pain, right? Like that's my job as a therapist. I hold people's pain. So I have to really take care of my physical body because especially if you're a person who's an empath or compassionate, you can absorb all of this stuff from other people and then you need a place to discharge it. And I notice when I'm not doing my walks, when I'm not getting my massages, like I get run down. So I need to make sure that I'm keeping up my own regimen for my health and well-being. Nobody else can do that for me. And there's never enough time for it. I have to make the time for it. So that's one thing I would say.
And be compassionate with yourself. Like, this is not easy, right? Like, if you're like, I think we spoke about this last week as well, I believe, was if you're not feeling well, like, just be okay with that. Like, you're not going to be at your best, right? Like, when I have the flu and like you want me to run a marathon, well, I don't run marathons, but even if I
shovel the walk,
yeah, even if I did, right, like, and I have the flu, I'm just not going to be able to do it, or it won't be my best, right? Maybe I will push through, but it won't be my best. And that's okay.
And that'll happen with other emotional things. So when, for example, you're dealing with loss, like say if somebody's passed away, that's not the time you're going to be at your best behavior to have those meaningful conversations with your partner, right? So give yourself a break. I mean, this last year with the COVID restrictions, all of us have been in this heightened state of emergency much, much longer and much more intensely than most of us have been in our lives, right? Not all of us, because many people have lived through war and things much more intense than COVID. But for those who haven't, this might be the first time that you're actually feeling these types of stressors. And so, you know, we were saying like at the beginning of the year, don't make big decisions right now, right? Because we're not at our best. We're not in our best place. Though then we said that and then we moved our whole lives to go live on a mountain. So I don't even know about that. But I do want to get to some of our other, does that feel like we covered that one?
I hope so.
How do you deal with loneliness and anxiety to be with other people or date?
Like invite love.
How do you deal with the anxiety for inviting love? Because then you compound the loneliness. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, this is tough, right? So I mean this particular person, right? I'm just gonna again speak from my experience, is that we can feel lonely, and that we can have those same anxieties when we have somebody in our life.
True. That's true.
Right?
Yeah, having somebody doesn't get rid. I can speak to that. Having a partner didn't get rid of my loneliness. It actually intensified it, because now I had the partner and I had the kids and had the job that I love, and I was still feeling lonely. And you know, at the end of the day, one of my teachers said to me, at the end of the day, you're going to sleep alone, even though you might be sharing a bed with someone. It's your thoughts and your mind at the end of the day, right? So that loneliness and that anxiety is something to look at with or without seeking partnership, right? And if you're anxious to be around people, again, that might be something that you get some professional support with, some professional help, especially during this time when we're kind of like encouraged to be anxious around other people. It's even harder for people who generally have a hard time around other people. So it's a tough time right now. But one of the easy ways, or one of the in-between ways, is doing things like going on groups where you have to show your face on the video, for example. I'm in this writing group, for example. Every little plug for my writing group every Sunday at 10 o'clock. It's fantastic for those who are into journaling or with writing prompts. So she reads a prompt and then she reads a quote and then she gives us a prompt. It's called Writing with Taslim. If you're interested, you can find it here somewhere. Google it, Writing with Taslim. And she leads us through, and we all have to show up with our cameras on, right? And then we chat in the so you're kind of moving through any shyness or any discomfort, but not with the physical people there yet. And so that's one way to kind of start working on your social anxiety or your loneliness, is connect into groups where you have to see each other and people can see you, and you show up as you are, right? Like, you don't go put on your face, show up as you are. Chai and Chat. So my women's group that I'm running is also one of those groups where you show up as you are. You're meeting with, it's an educational group, so you're learning about different concepts in psychology, and then there's a bit of a group discussion. Faizan's starting his group called Freedom Warriors, the men's support group, again, where you're going to show up, you're going to put your camera on, you're going to have some real conversations. So if you can take those steps yourself, with or without a partner in your life, right, to kind of start working on your own anxieties and loneliness and social isolation.
And that person who typed, maybe we were missing that context about loneliness and anxiety. So if you want to ask a follow-up, please do. Really, I think at the end of the day, it's looking at our anxiety and the loneliness as it stands, right? Like, I think there's this concept of be the partner that you want, right? So you be that partner.
So I show up in relationship the way I wish someone would show up for me.
Right.
I give myself, before I ask my partner to give it to me, I ask myself, am I giving it to me, right? If I want him to listen to me, am I really listening to all of me? Am I really listening to that soft, still voice inside that just wants me to be peaceful and happy? Or am I listening to all those other those voices, right? So then I can't expect from him what I'm not going to give to myself.
Right. So I think that's definitely important. So please, if you're still listening, go ahead and ask a follow-up question. Again, we miss context, but that's kind of, for us, it's that continuous work, right? Like for me, like I think we talked about it just before this session. Was for me, it's that imposter syndrome. Like I feel like an imposter showing up here, showing up in my relationship, right? Like so that so that feeling is there, right? And that feeling's not going away just because I was able to get married. Like it didn't fix that problem.
Maybe for 5 minutes on our honeymoon.
Well, you put that aside on the plane right there.
Okay. For those of you who know us, you'll know the story, right? About the plane ride, the honeymoon plane ride is we got on the plane and I told him, you better not expect me to do any laundry, any dishes, or make you any meals. I'm not that person. I'm not doing that shit for you. And it was kind of a lie because I do like doing those things, but I didn't want him to expect it. Yeah. And he's like, whoa, like we're going on our honeymoon. Why are we even talking about laundry? What is happening here? But for me, what that moment was about, it was about gender roles, right? And I didn't want to fall into this role of wife, right? With all the cultural expectations that we have as like men, men and women, but also like culturally in our tradition, right? Of what a wife means. So I was like, just putting it out there right at the beginning, like, I'm not going to do these things. Of course I'm doing these things and he's doing these things. But that conversation was my attempt at setting boundaries. And one of the things that people have a hard time in relationship with is boundaries. Ask for what you want, people. You might not get it, but at least ask for it. Right.
And I will say, for those that are wanting to attend any of those sessions, they have to come on their own. I mean, we can definitely put out the invites. We will be putting out the links as soon as kind of our I get my act together about the marketing. But it's for at least the men's group is for men who want to show up, right? They can't be forced to be there because there's nothing worse than a grumpy man in a group, right, Saira?
So there's some question here, follow-up question to the anxiety and the loneliness.
Right.
So I think I've done all those things, but my anxiety and loneliness is in trying to find a suitable person. Or why bother? Because I might not be suitable. Rather than being in a new place where I know no one and going out, seeing others together compounds my aloneness. So I'm doing my best to be with myself, which I'm pretty good at, but I'm being honest when I say I definitely feel alone and would love a partner, but it is quite hard. As in, I'm not a spring chicken, and in the gay world, it makes things a bit harder too. Yeah.
Obviously, I can't speak to that world and being in that world. So, but yeah, like the way I'm sensing the questions, or at least in that question, is something a lot of us deal with is self-love, right? Am I worthy? Right, like so. There's like, and this is something I'm dealing with as well, right? Like, am I worthy of being loved? And that's the work, right? Like, so that's the hard work. And I'm not saying, right, like, don't put yourself out there. Put yourself out there, fine, right? But at the end of the day, you're gonna have to continue doing this work. Am I worthy of love? And the hardest questions that I know I'm having to answer at this moment is, am I worthy of my own acceptance and love?
Fully, with all the nasty, crusty parts of ourselves, right? Can we accept ourselves? Because if I can accept all of me, there's going to be a tiny voice in my head that says nobody else will, right? Nobody else will want me if I can't even want me or love me. And so one of the things I'm thinking about when I was single and ready for love and ready for my kind of long-term relationship, I had just got out of a really long, serious 5-year relationship, and it had ended, and I was heartbroken, shattered, but I really wanted to kind of start the next phase of my life. So one of the things I did was I read this book by Dr. Phil. It's called Relationship Rescue. I don't know what it's called, but it's something that the subtitle was having the one you want or fixing the one you've got, something like that. And the whole book, Dr. Phil, it's really geared towards women, but he's talking to us about how, like, you are amazing and you have to know you're amazing. And you have to show up in the world like you're amazing and even fake it at first, because when, just think of things like when I'm not feeling good about myself, even if I dress up, even if I'm whatever, but if my energy is kind of contracted, then I'm not going to attract anybody, right? People are not going to even see me. They're going to miss me. When I show up fully, and that doesn't need to mean I'm like out there doing things, but when I actually in my heart show up fully as I am and present without apology, right, for who I am, then there's this magnetism that happens. And what I found is when I really was needing a partner, then you send off this like desperation vibe, right? This neediness, this clinginess. Nobody wants that. So it's actually first, unfortunately, just like weight loss, first we have to be okay where we are now. Really embrace that where we are now, like fully, deeply. And then allow for the part. And there's some guided meditations and things that I lead people through around like visualizing their partner. And a book that I would recommend is a book by Dr. Chuck Spezzano. It's called If It Hurts, It Isn't Love. If It Hurts, It Isn't Love. And it's 365. It's right there, right? Yep. It's 365 lessons.
Which one?
That way. No.
There you go. Right there.
That orange one there. Look, I'm pointing to.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's like there, right there, that one. But it's that piece around what we think love is because of what we've watched our whole lives from when we were pre-verbal, right? If we have those early wounds from our family, those stay with us until we work them out, until we work them through and we let them go. And so he talks about love in all of its forms, but specifically around romantic love. So that would be a book I would recommend to kind of start internalizing this idea of like, I am worthy and my partner's just waiting for me. They haven't just found me yet.
Like, wasn't there a thing you did as well? You created a list of everything you wanted. Like
that was from the Dr. Phil book.
Must have, not have.
So suggested that Dr. Phil suggested, and again, I don't usually follow Dr. Phil, but I loved this book, so I went for it. And he said, make a list of everything you want, everything, even things that feel superficial to you, everything listed down. And then you make a deal breakers list. And the deal breaker has like 4 or 5 things on it. Not a whole, just a few things that in these conditions I could not be with this person, and these are my 5 things. I think mine were very specific, like somebody who's addicted to a substance, somebody who's homophobic, somebody, like I had these very simple, like clear things on my list, just a few. And then when you go out into the world, you're attracting the person that has 80% of the qualities on your list. Because there's nobody who has that 100%. Because you don't have that 100%.
I brought like 120% for you, didn't I? No,
not even a little bit. So one of the things on my list was loves to travel, right? And when Faizan and I met, he'd never left the United States.
Nope.
Like that was his world, and so he loves to travel wasn't one of the check things, but he made 80% of the list. And now, 14 years into the relationship, that's something in him that's grown, that love for travel, right?
And I'm glad, right? Like the person who's commenting there, like that's awesome. You're on the right path, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and sometimes it's hard to do, but sometimes you have to take a step back and give yourself a pat on the back, saying,
like where I'm at.
I'm doing the work, right? And I mean, we're not gonna say like where you've come from, but like the amount of work you've done, like you're doing it. You're showing up. So
the person that was asking the question says, I'm on the right track. I'm reading a book for gay men on 10 things to do to have a better life. I'm wondering if you can write the name of that book in the comments, because somebody else might benefit from that. If that book is helpful.
Did you not have a discussion?
Oh yeah. So somebody asked the question about, did we not have our discussion about gender roles before we got married? Hell no, because we were in love and we didn't think about that stuff. We just talked about like, do you want kids? Yeah, I want kids. Okay, good.
And the hard thing is, right? Even if we had the conversation, when things change, are we flexible enough to change with it?
Right.
Right. Like, so, I mean, this gender role thing, as much as Saira gave me a hard time on the way to our honeymoon,
you'll never let me live that down.
I will never, like we're enjoying ourselves on our way, and I'm like, really, this is what you're going to talk about in the flight? Like, what did I say? Like, yeah, if I wanted a maid, I'd go get a maid.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah, like what are you talking about here? But but the hard part was when Saira went through her depressive episode, right? Like it was a couple of years ago, right? Like things had to change. Like other things had to get done at home, and kids had to be at school, picked up from school. All of those things continue to have happen, right? Like this is something that Saira had taken on. It wasn't just because she was a woman that's why she was doing it, but this is something she had taken on. So it was like, oh, am I gonna? And I had a hard time. I had a hard time to begin with, but it's like the whole thing about relationships is who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. Right? At the end of the day, it's like, am I just going to show up? Right? Like that's a question that I have to ask myself. Am I going to show up today? How am I going to? I might not show up as my best, but am I going to show up today and show up today and show up today?
I have a couple of so I want to read out loud for those who are not following the feed.
Yes.
Dr. Joe Court, 10 smart things gay men can do to improve their lives. Dr. Joe Court, 10 smart things gay men can do to improve their lives. That's the book that our viewer was reading that they found helpful for those in that situation who are not spring chickens anymore, but looking for love. And I wanted to address this question. So I'm struggling to deal with my daughter who is not speaking with us, and we both need work. And most of the pieces are pointing towards him. I'm assuming that means your partner. And it's hard to have that conversation with him, as that will bring more angerness and bitterness. I want to talk to you about the drama triangle, my friend. That's a diamond. How do you do it?
Imagine a triangle.
Can you put your hand on top? Like that. That's what it's supposed to. I don't have enough. There's a way. Oh, there. That's a triangle, right? Anyway,
why don't we talk about the triangle rather?
I want to show them the triangle. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there's three parts. If there's drama happening in your life, now this is a theory, not my theory. It's based in transactional analysis, which is a particular way of looking at psychology. So psychology is, transactional analysis is looking at our interactions with each other and how they define who we become as adults, right? And how we internalize those interactions. So one of the pieces in transactional analysis is a concept called ego states. And ego states means inside of us, there's three different versions. One is the child, right? The broken child. One is the critical parent, and then one is the caring adult. So there's these three parts inside of us. And so when we're trying to take a step, those three voices show up. Well, usually those two voices of the critical adult and the broken child show up. And we have to bring in then that third voice of the caring out. So that's one example of something that's in transactional analysis. So drama triangle. Somebody's saying, can you please record this?
Yeah, this will be available after.
This will be on Facebook and on YouTube and everywhere. So here we go, drama triangle. So here's how it looks. There's a triangle. There's three roles on the drama triangle, okay? There is the rescuer, there is the perpetrator, and there is the victim.
The hero.
Also known as the hero, the villain, and the victim. Right? So that's like more like layman's language. Hero, villain, and victim. So
for me. Language for me. Thank you.
Rescuer, perpetrator. I have to tell them what it really is, and then you can change it. But it's a rescuer. Okay. So what does that mean? So that means that if there was a conversation happening between Faizan and I, say we're struggling through something, the two of us could maybe work that out if it was just the two of us. But as soon as there's a third person in the story, now we're doing something that we call triangulating, which is really unhealthy in relationships. So triangulating means now somebody's the bad guy and somebody's the poor me and somebody else is going to save the day, right? So I'll give you an example of how this happens in real life. So Faizan and I, like sometimes we get passionate, we talk about things and we get loud, right? We get into it. And sometimes my daughter will like stop and come running and like try to see like, are we okay? My 8-year-old daughter. She'll be like, Mama, Papa, are you okay? So in that moment, she's being the hero and she's trying to determine who the perpetrator is. And usually it's, in her mind, usually it's him and usually I'm the victim. That's how she sees the story, right? And so we have to like let her know that we're okay and remove her from the conversation. We don't need to triangulate with our children. So important. Because another thing sometimes parents do is they'll actually turn to their children and talk to them about the other spouse. We can't do that because you're putting your kids in such a tough situation, right? Even if you're divorced from the other person, doing that is so harmful to your kids because you're putting them in this triangle, and
they always have to choose, right? They're gonna have to choose somebody, right? And that's the situation we're putting our children into when we're talking about the other partner.
Right. And so very similar. Here's something that's been happening a lot, not a lot, but more than usual, is my 8-year-old daughter is learning about having a voice, and she's really easy. She has a voice. But when it comes to her dad, she doesn't have, she gets scared of him because he's a big, strong man. I don't know what her reason is. He is a big, strong man. I love it. But she gets scared by it. So she comes to me and she tells me what's upset her. Like, say Papa raised his voice because she didn't put the dishes away, like whatever the reason, he raised his voice. And so she comes to me and she tells me what happened. And now I have two choices. I can either tell her, yeah, he's kind of like that. It's okay. Just let it go. I can do that. And then I'm the rescuer, right? Then I'm actually going to rescue. She's the poor victim and I'm rescuing her and I'm making him the bad guy. Or I can empower her to have that conversation with him. And that's what we've been doing is I've been encouraging her. Like, she tells me, and then I literally stand behind her with my arms around her and encourage her to speak to him. And so what I'm doing, and the way that idea came from me was actually from some personal development workshops, because when we do group work, a lot of times people have this experience where something from their childhood where they weren't able to articulate something to a parent is blocking them then from the rest of their life. And so we do these role plays where an adult will talk to another adult who they're pretending is their mom or dad, and then we'll support them in having that conversation now. So that 5-year-old in them that didn't get a chance to speak. So I'm saying, why wait till she's 30 to do that? Why can't she just do that now and build up the courage to actually have a direct relationship with her father rather than a relationship through me to her father, right? Because when that happens, we just cast him in the bad guy role all the time, and she's never going to actually have a relationship with him. So my job is actually to step away. To not tell him, I tell him, this is what's happened, and this is what I'm going to do, and then I do it. Now, our children are little. I think the question probably comes from an older child, since she's not speaking to you. So I'm assuming she probably lives separate, or that sort of thing. So in that situation, what I would ask myself, or the person who's asking this question, is where am I on the drama triangle? Mm-hmm. Sounds like you're trying to be the hero. You're trying to be the rescuer. You're trying to be the one to fix the problem. You're seeing your daughter as the victim, and you're seeing your husband as the perpetrator. That's what's happening. You're trying to fix it for them. Maybe they don't want to fix it. Maybe they're happier to just keep their distance from each other. And then we have to face our whole story about one big happy family, right? That we wanted from our childhood. We wanted to be part of this big happy family. We didn't have it. And so now we're trying to create it in our own family.
Right. And one of the challenges is what if something happens to you tomorrow?
Yeah.
Right. Then what is that relationship based on? If you were the glue. Right. And the other person, for me and my daughter, is I want to have a relationship with her. So I'm also coaching her through how to talk, how to state what she needs. Right.
With confidence.
To her mother, how she asks and all of those things. Because at some point she has to be on her own
in the
with
world.
Her mother, in the world. And now with older children, right? If you're the glue, what happens if once you leave that picture? What happens? Right? So even if you could glue things back together, what happens afterwards? Right? And so we have to stop playing middle women in these relationships, right? And
trust because when I go in to save someone, what I'm doing is I'm assuming that person doesn't have it in them to save themselves, right? When I see someone as a victim, that's a disempowering stance. I'm seeing them as not capable of doing it for themselves. So I want to think about how I can just empower that person rather than do it for them.
And the other thing, it was kind of mentioned before, right? We've talked about boundaries, where laying down boundaries is important. So respecting other people's boundaries is important as well. So if your child doesn't want to have a conversation until whatever requirements are met, and but so that's not for us to break off and say, no, I need you to have a conversation with me. Like as much as my parents want to force me about having certain conversations, if I don't want to have it, they're not getting it out of me. Right? And so these are the things. I don't know.
And it's that other piece too, right? Because somebody was saying, "Oh, I really want my husband to join your men's group. How do we get him there?" Again, right? People have to. So parents ask me all the time about, "Oh, my child, can you take them for counseling, or my partner?" And I say to them, "Look, you can send them for therapy, and then they can sit in the room for an hour and talk about nothing important." Right. So that's going to be a waste of time and money for everybody involved. Unless the person themselves wants to show up, there's no point. There's no point. And the more you talk about it, the more crazy you're going to feel, because you're trying to get someone else to do something. And we can never, ever get someone else to do something. Like we can maybe with our kids, they might do it for us, but it doesn't mean that they're necessarily doing it. Like at some point they're going to push back and say, "Okay, enough is enough, and you're done telling me what to do." Right? We need that autonomy. We need to be able to do what we want to do and not have other people always manipulating us and forcing us to do something.
Yeah, kind of what you mentioned, right? Like, yeah, you can't parent. I can't parent my wife.
She tried. I tried.
But you know, the one thing I was looking at today, there was this picture popped up on Facebook of my son 9 years ago. Right now he's like this much away from being as tall as me.
He's as tall as me.
He's like, taller than her now, but like
no, he's not.
Yeah,
is he?
Yeah, just a little, but just by this much, and he's this far away from me. But you know, it's like so all of like there's an emotion that came up. Obviously, I'm like, wow, he's gotten bigger. But there's also moments of like having a PhD in psychology as a wife. I made so many mistakes with him when he was growing up. And
so did I.
Well, yeah.
Just my PhD didn't help.
No, absolutely. But what I'm saying, I'm just talking about me here, right?
Okay.
Personal responsibility only. It's that for me, it was a conversation. Like what I have to do now is I cannot go back to when he was 3 years old and undo the things I may have said.
It's done.
The tone that I've said. It's done now, right? The only thing I know I can work on right now is that self-love piece, forgiveness. And I can lay a different foundation of my relationship with him as a almost 12-year-old now, right? Like he's
saying sorry helps though.
No, saying sorry helps, obviously, right? Like, and I go to him and I listen, kiddo. Like I don't know what I'm doing, right? Like I literally like as soon as I figure out how to raise a 10-year-old, you become 11, and then there's all of these different things that come up when I was 11 and what I needed. You know, all of those things come up. For me.
And that's a good point. I'm just going to pause you for a second.
Yeah.
So if you're having challenges with, say you have children or nieces or nephews or younger people, and you're having challenge at a particular age with them, think back to when you were that age and what was going on for you. Likely there's an opportunity for healing that's coming up for you. So just keep that in mind if you're having those kind of real like power struggles, that again, going inside and seeing what was happening for me when I was 23 or 38 or whatever the ages of your daughter, and do your personal work. And because the idea, sorry, now you can.
No, go.
The idea is that everybody around us is a teacher for us.
Right.
If we're paying attention. Right? We can make everybody else the bad guy and we can be the victim and like, poor me, look, my family's not getting along. Poor me, my husband's not going to the group. Poor me, I have this pain in my body. Or poor me, I'm, not a spring chicken and I'm all alone. You can make yourself the victim and then you can live there and it's going to be a pretty, frankly, crappy life. Right? Or you can take accountability and say, I have power here. I have agency here. I can transform out of the victim into a creator. So the three on the drama triangle, right? I mentioned rescuer, perpetrator, and victim. When those become healed, when we actually take accountability, so the rescuer has this need to save people. And if you have no one to save, you go looking for drama. I can relate. That's me. That's the thing I work on, right? Is like going and looking for people to save. And it's the reason we do that is to avoid our own pain, right? So if I can help someone else, I don't have to look at what I need. I don't have to ask for anything. I don't have to be vulnerable, right? So the gift in the rescuer, if we're able to get over that and actually turn back inward rather than looking outward, the gift in the rescuer is to become a coach, right? To become a supporter and a helper rather than a rescuer doing it for them.
You empower people.
You empower
them, right? And then what does the victim become?
The victim, once the victim takes accountability and owns their power, owns their own power, then they become a creator. They can actually form the life the way that they want it rather than life happening to them. And the perpetrator, once healed, so the perpetrator is always like picking on everybody else and saying how everybody else is wrong and it's always their fault. That person, once they, again, take accountability and stop making it about everybody else, that person then becomes the challenger. That's the person who takes the group to the next level, right? And asks those critical questions and challenges everybody to grow more. So if you're one of those three, or you can identify yourself or your partner or your mother-in-law or whoever in one of those three roles, think about what it is I need to do to transform my role. Not what do they need to do, because they're going to do it or not do it. That's up to them. So I would have to ask myself, okay, right now I'm trying to be the rescuer. So for example, with my daughter, my instinct is to say, oh, it's okay, honey. Like, I know he's just in a bad mood today. That's my instinct, to just rescue her.
Yeah.
But then I have to stop and say, wait a minute, the outcome of this is next time she's again going to do the same thing and she's never going to have a relationship with him. So I have to push past my comfort level, and because rescuers don't like confrontation.
So in that particular situation, where's your comfort level? Like, where was the work you needed to do in that moment to decide to either empower her or to protect her?
Oh, I had to look at my own daddy stuff,
right?
I had to look at how I felt small or scared about my dad and how this was just playing out again all over me. And my position as a child was I was very obedient, and I'd listen, and I'd just shut my mouth and listen. Right. So I never had that voice. And I got that voice like when I was 17 or 18, I finally, found my voice. So the whole thing would have replayed with her if there wasn't that awareness. And honestly, that awareness isn't because I'm special. It's just because in a moment I had a clarity. Something came through and said, stop what you're doing, do something else. And so the more we cultivate our relationship with that higher self, right, the more we're able to hear that voice. My husband is perpetrator, as it's always other people's fault. Yeah. And in the drama triangle, we all live in each of the roles. So there'll be one that we're more comfortable in, but so I was thinking about myself, for example, a couple of days ago. So I was presenting this concept in my Chai and Chat group about the drama triangle. And so I was thinking, okay, I know where I've been the victim, I know where I've been the rescuer, but what about when where have I been the perpetrator? And I really had to think about that, right? Because in my mind, that's not who I am. But then I thought about some other people in my life and their perspectives, right? I thought about my brother and how when I was really little and he would be getting on my nerves, I'd like lock him in the bathroom. I thought I had good reason because he was crazy and like trying to burn down the house, but I did that, right? I think about my kids, and when I'm in a bad mood and I'm, the house is a mess and I'm getting like angry, that's me as the perpetrator, right? So we have to acknowledge that it's all in us, okay. Because if it's just in you, then what can I do about it? But if it's in that
particular situation where you kind of get on the kids,
yep,
then I'm like the one.
Then you're the hero, the rescuer.
Like, hey, why don't I help you do this? Why don't I help you? Right? Like, rather than saying, yeah, you're going to have to deal with this. We're all going to have to deal with it. The biggest thing that I know I've had to do is not look at you as the bad guy, as the victim, as the hero, right? Like, I think sometimes we want, see, these are the hard things, right? Like, my thing about getting labels put on, like there's the attachment theory, and then there's this, the drama triangle theory, all great things for us to actually understand and just conceptualize where we are, right, in our lives. But I don't like getting labels put on, because it means I need to put a label on somebody else as well. Right. So if I'm going to be the hero, or I'm going to be the victim, or the bad guy, whatever I want to call it, somebody else has to be something else. Right.
because it's transactional, right? It's about the interactions in the relationship. So what we're trying to do is go back to a one-to-one. So we're not triangulating, right? We're not getting involved in other people's stuff, letting two people have something just between them, listening to both sides and not getting involved, right? And not letting it churn up inside of us, right? And then also owning in our own self the places and becoming mindful, like, oh, that was kind of an aggressive, blamey thing I just did there, even if it's in my own mind. Maybe I'm not the perpetrator out there, but maybe I'm a huge perpetrator towards myself, right? Maybe I'm criticizing myself all the time. That's a perpetrator.
I do that.
Right? Yeah. So that's just another way, again, to take it back to you. We cannot, and we should not, change anybody else. But we can, and we absolutely, I think, would be wise to start changing ourselves as best we can. Right. So it's almost been an hour.
Almost been an hour.
Did we have any other questions? Oh, there was that one last question about anxiety and depression. And should we address that one?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so our last question was, what do we do if somebody, if I think my partner is depressed or anxious, but they don't really,
they're trying to push through
it. They're just trying to like snap out of it. They're not maybe getting the help that they need. They're just trying to snap out of it on their own. How do I support my partner in getting help? I think was the point of that question.
Yeah.
Ideas?
Expert, go for it. I don't know. I don't know how. Well, other than saying like the other person has to step up and ask for help, right? Because there's not much I can do when you didn't want to go get help.
Right.
I could tell you, hey, why are you in bed? Until you went and got help for yourself, I couldn't do anything.
Yep. So I think that's it. Like, as much as you're wanting to help your partner, you're seeing them as a victim right now. A victim to their depression or a victim to their anxiety. To trust the process, that they're going to have their own journey. And the way that they seek help may not look the way that you would seek help. They might not attend a group. They might not go to therapy. They might not read a book. Maybe they're just going for walks in nature, and that's their way of coping through their anxiety. Maybe they're, playing Sudoku, and that's their way, or playing solitaire, right? So letting everybody know that there's no right way. There's lots of recommended ways, but those recommended ways don't work for everyone, to be honest. That's why mental health is such a difficult area, because there's no prescription that we can give somebody and say, just do this and you'll be better. Like, from a medical perspective, from a medicine perspective, we can't do that. From a therapy perspective, we can't do that, right? From a how to live your life perspective, we can't do that. So trusting your partner to have everything that they need already inside of themselves to get the help they need when they're ready for it. They might just think this is their personality and they're fine with it. And you're the one who thinks they need help.
But there is pain involved, no? Like, there's anguish as somebody who...
As the partner?
As a partner, yeah. Like, I love somebody and they may not be living to their full potential.
But that's about you then. That's about you wanting them to be a certain way. Seeing that they have this potential and they should be. And so one of the things is ask them directly, how can I help? I've noticed this. What can I do to help? That was one of the best questions that people ask me.
And what if they say, get the F out of my face?
Then you do that. Then you listen and you actually do what they're asking you to do, right? If they say, actually, the way you can help is stop bringing it up, then stop bringing it up. And trust the process. And this is where something, back to that spiritual concept that we were talking about in our podcast, where it has to be about more than just you and me, right? Mm. That trust that there's some other presence that's supporting this relationship, right? That it's not all on me to be everything for this person, that trusting that they are responsible for building their own social network. They are responsible for looking after their physical and mental health. They're grown up. They're not a child. Right. And right at the beginning, we did this thing, right, where I fixed Faizan's clothes and somebody said, isn't that a love killer? Yes, it is. When you try to mommy your partner, whether you're male or female, when you try to parent your partner, that's a love killer, because it makes the other person feel small, right? Nobody wants to feel small. So that's what I would say about that one. Just leave him alone and stop telling him. Super smart guy to figure it. I just feel he is stuck in himself, and maybe he is.
Maybe he's not.
Maybe he's not depressed or anxious. Maybe this is, like I said, his personality. This is the person that you marry, or the person that they've become after a certain number of years. And then maybe that's a conversation you have with them and say, the last 5 years have been kind of tough with you doing blah, 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 blah. What can we do to change that?
If you want to have that conversation, right? Like I know I have built other support cycles for me to process.
And I didn't tell him, can you go on this website and find this men's group? I didn't tell him that. Because I think if I would have, he would have pushed back and said, well, because she told me I don't want to do it. Because Faizan likes finding his own answers. He doesn't like to be told what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're
at an hour.
Away.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so those were great questions. Thank you so much for your interaction, for sticking with us through this hour. We'll be back here next Sunday at the same time, 12 o'clock Pacific, to answer your questions. So if you have questions that you want us to kind of ponder before Sunday, send them to us. You can either put them in the comments here, or you can
private message.
That's probably the better way. Private message us. Also, if you're watching this after and you didn't watch it live, just write #replay when you're watching it, so that I should have said that at the beginning, but anyway, so that we know, we love knowing who was here and who was benefiting. A couple of resources for you. I'll mention them again. So we have a men's group coming up, Freedom Warriors. We have Chai and Chat, which is a women's group. We have Life Support, which is an LGBTQ2 plus community member support group. And we have Scar Tissue, which is for family members of those who are struggling with addiction. So those 4 groups are available. You can private message us for more information, or go to my website, which is right there, drsaira.ca.
Yeah. So we'll kind of end it here. I know we're a couple of minutes ahead, but yeah, thank you. Thanks for all the questions. Thanks for all of the conversations. And again, tell us where what we should address. Tell us your story if you want to share your stories. Because one of the biggest reasons we're doing this is we're not the experts.
Nope, not even a little bit.
We're also learning. And so when somebody shares their
I think
story,
we also have benefited from couples doing this with us.
Yeah.
Like, we've been to workshops, we have amazing people in our family who have coached us and mentored us. And so if we can offer anything of that back to other people who are looking to learn, that's why we're
and we've got the benefit of doing this work maybe a step ahead of some people,
maybe half a step,
but it's us, all of us, kind of working and doing our work, right? And one of the things I know in our growth group, if any of you want to still join, it's Dr. Saira's growth group, where we're hoping to start some of these conversations. And one of our belief system is that your work is my work, which means when you do your growth work, it helps me, right? So that person asking about anxiety and loneliness, it makes us think about, like, yeah, we're still lonely. We still feel lonely. Saira and I both, in our relationships, right? Like, it's just part of that reflection. And how do we get connected to that power, the divine source, whatever we want to call it, to start kind of letting go of that story. And
if you have deeper questions that require professional support, we would ask you to reach out to a professional. So there's therapists, counselors, marriage counselors. There's all kinds of resources out there for you. I offer one-to-one counseling. Faizan offers one-to-one. So if you're a couple, we don't do that work, but you can reach out to me and I can give you some names of people who do that work. Because yes, not everything can be solved in a 1 hour conversation. And so making sure that, and again, your partner might not be up for relationship counseling, but maybe you are up for learning some tools and some things.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll leave it at that. So until next time, smile more.
Worry less.
Bye.
Bye.